Hey guys, it's Colin with Ghost Train Comics, and today we're going to be looking at Beneath the Trees, Where Nobody Sees, the Rite of Spring. This is the second series in a proposed wrap-up trilogy of 3 that started with Beneath the Trees, Where Nobody Sees. And this is such an interesting book, and it's one where I fully lean into all of the hype on it. It's such an amazing... It reinvents the genre in comics of that kind of cozy anthropomorphic horror, or murder mystery if you like, or serial killer anthropomorphicism, i.e. funny animals. But it's so well done. Patrick Horvath he's experienced with movies and TV and is such an accomplished cartoonist, and obviously knows how to nail people down that half the time you don't notice that they're all different animals in this town, including the central protagonist, Samantha, the bear. Now, I will be doing a separate review of the first series, but I did want to get this one out. It is advised that you read the first book to fully appreciate this one, because there is some follow-up in the events that happen in that book. There is a time lapse of 8 years between the first series and this one. So let's get into it. So posting a sequel to such a unique work like Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees is obviously risky, but swapping around the narrative point of view to the sister of possibly one of Samantha's victims is a shockingly brilliant and dangerous move. Starting with a cold open issue on Monica Brewer's story and how much of her life she's wasted trying to find out what happened to her brother who went missing 8 years before, really pulls you right in. And the kind of observation, street level storytelling, first person narrative that we get from Monica is just fantastic, as it gets through a ton of exposition super quick, and we get to watch Monica's everyday life and what it means for somebody to be in that position where you pretty much give up your life trying to get closure on an event that happened, with a family member, in this case her brother Daniel. Suddenly we're brutally reminded of the reality of Samantha's hobby and the risk of flipping the central perspective like this in a horror story where so much relies on the surface. Likeability is not always an appropriate word, as we're all aware of these people are dreadful, but we're also invested in seeing it from their point of view. But the central protagonist, it's breathtakingly daring doing it this way, bringing in a woman who is much more empathetic and a character who we can really feel for, and we see the depth of what Samantha's actions have cost other people and how she's ruined other people's lives. It's also, it doesn't take away any of the interest in what makes Samantha tick, which is something that Horvath really digs into a lot more in this volume than in the first one, as in we go, like in the sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, like in the Testaments, we go backwards as well as forwards. It also sets up a moral realignment of our own sympathies, like I mentioned, and an exciting tension, wondering if Monica will discover Samantha's secret and culpability. The anthropomorphic art is again deceptively beautiful and dreamily detailed with really smart 90s internet style pastiche elements around it, and the gorgeous faded, washed out pastel colors really filling in details around the edges. Issue 2 gives us some backstory on what Samantha has been up to since book 1 and how her path crosses Monica's. Issues 2 and 3 continue moving the story forward as you really get to know Monica Brewer as a person and feel powerfully as to what she's going through. And having known people close to me who suffered brutal losses in a very public way and still sought closure for years, So this really hits home because it makes me think of that person's struggles and their family, and how the death of their daughter and some unanswered questions like who did it lingered for years. Still do, actually. But the time setting of the early to mid 90s is so interesting here, looking at such a tumultuous time of change. And for this specific story, the change is happening with the dawn of the internet, massive malls and developments going up, affecting each of our main protagonists in different ways. It's almost like a last nostalgic look back at a more innocent, less aware and less connected to the rest of the world and to reality. I won't say connected to each other, because that's kind of the point, that it was the start of people being able to drift away from having meaningful connections with others. Something we saw, another huge impact point obviously being the COVID period from 2020 on. As this book winds its way down to a dramatic climax, it's an intriguing and smart way to continue a character that could easily have been a one-and-done novelty hit by adding a lot of layers onto Samantha's behavior and her history, and bringing in the more than formidable, fully developed persona of the haunted, yet still down-to-earth Monica Brewer to more than match her, as well as supporting characters, some of which were connected to the events of the first book. Characters that feel more real than most non-funny animal books manage. The art continues to impress on every page, and the design framing that collected editions takes us back to the early internet era of AOL and, computer cluttered, chunky, pixelated graphics, free trial CDs, and a world waking up to the pros and cons of the looming internet highway opening up on an uncertain, infinite lane blacktop limited only by a high-pitched phone screech of a painfully slow dial-up connection. The third book cannot come soon enough. Thanks, guys. As always, love to get a subscribe and like, and love to get your comments and feedback and thoughts on this series. Thanks.